book.
Fine. So we will start now. Greetings and welcome to SCERT B.Ed. I'm thrilled and with the high spirit sharing this beautiful morning time with all of you. My name is Professor Abha and I'm Principal B.Ed in SCERT Delhi. I thank you all for sparing your time to participate in this webinar on seamless learning and education, which is scheduled for today. We will be live streaming the webinar as usual on the YouTube for future reference. For the Q&A session, you're requested to post the questions in the comment box, or you may raise your hand and ask the question. I'm extremely elated to introduce you to Dr. Helga Hembach. She is an adjunct professor of educational technology and instructional design for master's and PhD students, as well as a senior instructional designer at the Concordia University, Chicago. She is on PhD committees as reviewer and external examiner for international universities. Her passion lies in the improvement of education by utilizing technologies and methodologies which with a specific focus on mobile and seamless learning. During the year of completing her PhD studies in South Africa in 2016 on the use of smartphones by students in and out of the classroom, she moved to the USA and settled in Chicago. Over the past years, her interest in global collaborations has grown to address common challenges and to find common solutions in the field of education. She joined the International Association for Mobile Learning in 2016 and has been on the EXCO as member at a large for 2 years and then as VP for 2 years. The global research project was initiated by her in 2018 when the MLearn 2019 conference was hosted by the Concordia University, Chicago. She then has been invited to conferences as keynote speaker and has offered numerous workshops and projects globally. She has published articles and book chapters and received a Global Outreach Award for initiating microlearning training for early childhood center caregivers in Southern Africa in 2019. Thank you and welcome, Dr. Helga. We would like to know more about seamless learning and education, and over to you, Dr. Helga. Please.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it. And thank you for that introduction. That's a huge honor for me. For me, it's also to be here and to speak with students that are in another country, that are in India. I am very, very excited about that. And I hope we can have a discussion at the end. Please ask questions and, that we can have more of an interactive approach here. My topic is seamless learning. Now, this is the topic that I've been very interested in, and I'm going to take you through this, where I got to this topic and what it means. Right, so I'll tell you a bit about my background and then the introduction of challenges for quality education, because we want to look at that. I mean, that's really the focus, and then proposing a solution. And then we will be looking at seamless learning in context, seamless learning experience design, and then seamless teaching and learning. Okay, so my background, I actually grew up in South Africa. My parents lived on a farm in KwaZulu-Natal. So if any of you have been in South Africa, you could maybe find the places, or you can look at the maps. And both my parents were very involved in community upliftment. My mother was very interested in education, and especially education for women. And my father was very much in building and construction, and he built many schools, especially in the rural areas. So I grew up with this concept of education and upliftment since a child, and of course, I would become a teacher. So from there, I moved up and taught for many years. I was in the school system for 15 years, and after that, I studied further, and now I've been in the university system for another 15 years. So I've got education all over me. And I started doing my master's, and in that time, as Professor Sharma was reading, I did my master's, and then after that, my PhD study in the field of educational technology and a focus on mobile learning. And my seamless learning interest evolved from there. So now let's look at what challenges do we have in education. You look at these pictures and you immediately recognize them. You know, we have population growth problems. We have the infrastructure. We have the facilities that are not everywhere. You know, we have specific clusters in the world that may have everything, but the majority still doesn't have it all. And then we ask ourselves, so how can we improve this? And I'm sure every educator that is working in this field has that same question. And as I understand, you are students that are studying for education, or you are in education already, you are also wondering about challenges. And on top of all of this, we had the pandemic. So it was, you know, we really went through a very typical high crisis. And talking about quality, that was right at the back burner. We just wanted to get through all of this. And many of these countries are still battling with that, whether there's a pandemic or not. Now, this is the picture where the pandemic was the worst. And I just wanted you to think about it again. I mean, it's not quite gone yet, but it is still a reminder that we are in a time, and even we are living in the world where pandemics can start again. But, you know, we don't want to focus on the negatives. We want to just, you know, picture the challenges so that one can just think about those. And then we want to look at the quality education specifically in the education realm. Now, if we see this picture, it has a lot of those. It's a nice infographic. It gives you, you know, some pictures to look at. And if you look at the first title, there, Be the Change in Education, I know everybody knows where that comes from, right? So if you want to see the change, be the change. Now, if you look at all these different areas where we have challenges in terms of cultural diversity, in terms of not enough experiential learning, too much book learning, too much theory, and then no practical application. Students have to sit in the classrooms. They hardly go out to actually experience anything of that. Then where's the fun in learning? I mean, most of the learning is really very staunch, sitting in rows, talking, listening. And then also it's always very teacher-centered. So our teachers, you know, standing in the front, as I said, and the students sitting in the line. Teachers open to help students. They need to be more open. Sometimes they just say, keep quiet. We just want to listen and work through this. And I know it's a matter of time sometimes. Then we have mental health issues that come with that. Then interactive learning. All of these can bring more quality to the classroom, into the field of education. And then we can talk about relations and connect with our teachers. And then I'm taking it from left to right, you can see here. Then we can also look at the course content and see how it connects with the world of work. Is our curriculum still on, you know, on a level that it meets the requirements of the business environment? Then, as I said at the beginning, are we accommodating the diverse learning styles or the diverse learners? And then the student voice, are we including the student's voice? I just want to take this down because I can't see all my slides. Right, and then the other thing is that the government and parents and students and the universities, that they need to work together, and then obviously also peer support. Okay, so now we have a lot of challenges that we have in our mind, and now we want to start looking at the solutions. The United Nations, the fourth Sustainable Development Goal is quality education. So this is a goal, worldwide goal, and it seems as if it's moving really slow. We hope that it will be moving a bit faster. And with this concept that I will be proposing, I really hope that we get more schools, more education systems that can speak the same language and actually achieve this quality education, no matter whether you are in a city or urban area or a rural area, that we can achieve this. So this is our goal. Now, the solution that I want to propose is seamless learning in context. Now, first of all, we want to go and ask ourselves, well, who are we preparing this education for? For whom is this? Who's the target group? And obviously this target group is a student, right? So now we ask ourselves, how does the student learn? Maybe we have not really gone into the detail of how the process of learning takes place. Maybe we should look into that part. And then we want to look at this story of seamless learning, and then how do we apply it? Okay, now let's look at how students learn. We all know that we are absorbing knowledge through our senses, right? Sight, smell, hearing, touching, tasting, and all of that information goes into our brain. Now, if we look at the brain, it's really quite interesting. And I thought it would be fun for you or interesting for you just to be reminded how the brain functions. And research has shown that if you have more than one mode moving into the brain, the opportunity of remembering knowledge for a longer period of time is better than just using one. So if we would be sitting in the class and listening or watching, we have two of our senses that we are using. But it says it moves better into the long-term memory and stays there for a longer time. We don't only want the student to know it for one event, right? So now let's look at this brain of ours. So if you look at the brain, we have the prefrontal cortex, and that is where the complex cognitive processes happen. This is where the short-term memory is, where the verbal, where your verbal possibilities are lying, and then also your spatial, how you observe space. So that's prefrontal cortex. And then the second is the amygdala. Now, this little piece of organ there in the middle of the brain, it is where the emotions and the memories are stored and first absorbed and stored. And this is interesting because that's where you feel joy, love, grief, even shame. And then you have the hippocampus, which is right next to that one. Some of you may know all these names, so I'm just repeating, but I do think it's interesting to just be reminded where all of these pieces in the brain are. So the hippocampus is where the episodic memories are. So if you would be in the classroom and you would listen to the teacher and say, for instance, something happens in the classroom, you might remember that better. And it's just for that moment. Say, for instance, a bird flies into the through the window. You know, I'm just saying something like an event that is a bit different. Then you would remember that for that moment. It's for a temporary storage. And from there, it would be transferred into the neocortex when we sleep. So we really need our sleep because we don't just, want to keep it here. And then the cerebellum, I just want to go back. The cerebellum is the fine motor control. That's, for instance, if you learn something like writing with a pen or using chopsticks, that is stored here in the bottom part of your brain, the lower part of the brain. And then the cerebellum is, the basal ganglia is this piece here. That one is connected, if you can see here, they are like tubes. It's connected to the amygdala and the hippocampus. And this is where it processes the emotions and habits and rewards, movement and learning. So there's a lot of activity going on in the basal ganglia. And then this one, the neocortex, the largest part of the brain, which is our sort of hard drive, is where the higher functions are happening. This is where your sensory perception, like seeing, hearing, feeling, and where all the permanent, storage is happening. So just interesting. So if we can get our students to learn by using all of these parts of the brain, we could achieve a higher type of learning and a longer memory. So the journey of seamless learning, where did it start? We have heard a bit of that, so I'm not going to go into all of that detail, but I can just tell you that we did some research in 5 countries, and we asked the professors, what do they know about seamless learning, just to get an idea. And from there, we compiled a book, and the first book is available with this link. I will send you the link later on, and then you can have a look at that book. So we were in 5 countries. We did exactly the same study. And then from there, another study came because we are still busy. It's a longitudinal study. Now, if we want to look at seamless learning design, we need to think about where design came from and where educational technology design came from. Because seamless learning cannot just be some kind of learning. It has to be designed and start from somewhere. Now, during the Second World War, there was a man called Robert Gagne. I know you have most probably heard about him because he's also very well known for the best practices, the steps of classroom teaching. So he came up with this model where he would say, okay, how am I going to bring the machine and the man together? So he said, okay, I'm going to start off. So he had to train the Army Air pilots. And so he started with system development. He looked at the machine and the man, and then he said, okay, I'm going to start with a design. So I'm going to first do a task analysis, find out what do they need to learn, and then I will come up with a job design. Then he went to the development stage, and he said, okay, I'm going to add some job aids. I will give them selections. I will give them training. I will give them training devices and then performance measures. We have to evaluate what they've done. And then the testing. That would be the team training happens, and then after that, the testing. And then the systems training and system evaluation and operational stage, all of these would then be included. And this is a beginning of the ADDIE model that we also using this is now instructional designers, for designing any type of instruction. We work hand in hand with the professors at our universities, with the curriculum developers, and with the teachers. Maybe in your school, you may have teachers that are doing instructional design. So they work hand in hand with your teacher saying, this is what we suggest. Let's talk about what we want to achieve. And, then they can use the technology that can help. Now, where did the seamless learning start? It's been a practice that can be already identified in Seymour Papet's article on information technology and education. And this was in 1987 already, many years back. He was in a science environment, and he wanted the students to know what's going on in the outside of the classroom too. So he wanted to take them out. And this is why, also because I come from a farm and that I love animals, I put that picture there so you can see he wanted the physical environment with the theoretical environment to be, should be a link. And that he called seamless from one space to the other. And then in 1996, there was a researcher called Koo, and he wrote in the American Personal College Association, they had a journal, he wrote that seamless learning is a distinct separated learning environments that are part of one continuous learning experience and distinguished 6 environments. So he didn't talk about classroom and environment outside only. He also said, let's look at more academic and non-academic learning, curricular or non-curricular learning, on and off-campus learning, formal and informal learning, as well as learning with or without technology. So technology is important, but it's not the thing that it's, where the world turns around. And then to engage students in learning activities and environments that promote both hands-on experimentation and minds-on reflection. So those two were very important. And then in the 1990s, we saw it again in research. With Hofstein and Rosenfeld, they said, we need to fill the gap between formal and informal science. There you see the test tubes in the classroom, and then if you go out, you would see it in the field. To engage students in learning activities and environments that promote hands-on and minds-on, I already said that, reflection, to provide learning for the needs and abilities of a heterogeneous population of citizens. That is science for all. They said, Hofstein and Rosenfeld wanted everyone to learn about science. So it's not only the students, but also involve, people outside the classrooms. And then this need could be considered the start of the research in the field of mobile and seamless and collaborative learning, inquiry-based learning, citizen science learning. So there was a lot of going on after what they had written up. And then in the 1990s to the 2000s, this is where, eliminating the gap between in and out of classroom. They put some pictures up in the classroom where a student is sitting and taking notes, and the professor is standing in the front, writing on the board. And then the outside, we would take a walk outside and maybe consider writing an essay on the lake or nature. And here where the students actually lies on the lawn and maybe, either learns there, reads the information on a laptop. So increased and holistic student support. So these are the things that we also need to add. This needs to be more, there must be a more holistic approach. There must be more support, encourage students to take advantage of learning resources inside and outside the class, use their own life experiences to make meaning of material introduced in the classes, and merging formal and informal learning, and curriculum and organizational support needs to be there. So that is what evolved from 1990 to 2000. So as technology became more readily available, some of these things could be achieved better, but one needed to think through it and actually have minds on and think, how am I going to integrate it so that it actually includes all of these environments and it includes more of the brain functions of the student. So the story, this is now from 2000 to 2012, that is when Chan wrote, marked by continuity, Chan et al. In 2006, marked by the continuity of the learning experience across different scenarios or contexts and emerging from the availability of one technological device or more per student. So there is continuity from one device to the other, from the class, being in, being out, sitting in your bedroom, being on the bus, being in the taxi, anywhere, at any time. And availability of personal devices could enable students to learn when they are curious in any context and to connect these different formal and informal individual and social contexts in which they are learning, also through the extension of social spaces in which learners interact. That is another very important part, is the social part of learning. And then also Wong states, that was in 2012, a seamless learner should be able to explore, identify, and seize boundless latent opportunities that his learning can improve. Okay, and the most recent definitions, the 2012 to 2015 by Sharples, he said, seamless learning is when a person experiences a continuity of learning and consciously bridges the multifaceted learning efforts across the combination of locations, times, technologies, or social settings. So it's all about continuity, constant, being able to access your learning from wherever you are and always being on the alert and on learning. And then in 2015 to 2018, another approach was found. You can see the girl in the rural area using her laptop, maybe her mom's laptop. So they said that so that learners experience a continuity of learning across environments and settings. This is natural versus design combinations of locations, technologies, and social settings at different times. And then they added the term natural versus design combinations. So it's talking about we are designing for a better learning opportunity. And I think by now you know what the seamless learning is aiming at. And then from 2018 up to today, there's more development. Like one said, we need to think about personalized learning activities across spaces. We need to talk about technology-enhanced learning domain. They talk about continuous and cross-contextual learning to mark out a design paradigm with the larger domain of learning and instructional design. To typify the organizational change of interweaving formal and non-formal learning, and then to describe a specific type of learning environment, to label specific and concrete learning scenarios, and to describe how mobile and ubiquitous technology can influence and change the way we learn. Yes. So now the objective of seamless learning is a promise of this continuity lies in potential learning gain. And how do we want to improve the quality of education? What is our goal? We want to increase retention rate, right? Our students, we have a lot of students that are falling behind, that are not fulfilling the criteria of the universities. We want to increase knowledge transfer. So from the book, from the teacher, from whatever they see into the brain, and the movement in the brain, that it will be more successful, and increased academic performance and motivation. It doesn't help if we have everything around and the student is not motivated. And then awareness and change in perception. Very important, because it's a new approach and professors don't really understand it immediately. It takes a while, especially when you include more technology. We know during COVID, everybody had to go over to technology, but now that it's over, they go back to the regular classroom. And an increase and sense of self-efficacy, that the student takes responsibility of his own learning. And next to potential organizational gain, we want the universities to have increased efficiency and time spent on learning. So really planning on that as well, and influencing nature, process, and outcomes of learning. So this is really a huge amount of information. You know what seamless learning is about, and you know what the aim is. We really want to achieve quality education over a whole different, spaces and time. Okay, now the newest definitions, we have talked about that. Now, if we look at the scenario here, we have the students, this is exactly where we are now. I am in South Africa, you are in India, over space and time, different time zones, and we are in a learning environment. So this is a typical example of seamless learning. So now if we want to design this seamless learning, it can be quite daunting because there is so much going on. I have given you so much information, I think your head must be spinning and your brain must be saying, oh, well, overload. So now to bring all of these pieces together and make it simpler, so it's understandable for the designer, as well as for the curriculum designer, as well as for the teacher and the instructor and the professor and the university. We have taken all of the information that we got back from the instructors, and we did a qualitative research study, and we did a analysis, in-depth analysis, and we found themes, and these themes were then grouped together. And here is now the model that we designed. And this is now a model that another professor and we brought it together, and it's now in the process to being published. But we use this model anyway for our studies. So you will be able to read about the model more in the paper, and you will also be able to read about the model in the second book, which I will also give you the link to. Now, what are these concepts? I'm just going to quickly show you that. The first one is the core concepts, positive concepts, practical concepts. I just have to watch my time. Human concepts and design concepts. I will talk about them one by one a bit later. So if we want to design, we look at the ADDIE model. This is from an instructional design position. And that is based on what we saw, that first model that I showed you from Robert Gagne, where he starts off by saying, what am I going to teach? What is the goal? So the first part is an analysis. And then the second level is designing. Third level is developing the intervention. And then the next level is implementation of the intervention. And the final one is to evaluate what the students have learned, and if they learned everything, and then you want to go back and add it again. So it's nearly like a cycle, but he built it up, on levels. So that is the first model of instructional design when we want to design. And we also use this for the seamless learning. So we ask ourselves what is needed. Right. And then there are other models. I'm not going to go through all of them because I really want to go in more depth into the seamless learning model, but you can see there are several ones and they have just built on. It also starts the Kemp instructional design model. It starts with identifying the problem, examining learner characteristics, identify subject content, state instructional objective for the learner, sequence content. So now you start designing. What do I need to teach? Design instructional strategies so each learner can master the objectives, plan the message and delivery, develop evaluation and instruments, and then select resources to support instruction. So that's the one. And then we have other models that we also use, which are not specifically design models, but they are very helpful if we think about how learning takes place. So the first one is Merrill's first principles of instruction. So if we teach a class, we first want the students to be engaged in real-world problems, solving real-world problems. So that's the first, problem-centered. Then he goes activated. That's the second one, second goal we want to achieve. Existing knowledge is activated as the foundation of new knowledge. So he brings in examples, in the class and says this and this. So it activates the thinking, understanding of the knowledge, and then can build. The next level would be demonstrating. What is this new information we want to show? Like, for instance, where I show you the brain, I talk about learning, and then I show you the brain. Then there is the next one is the new knowledge is demonstrated to the learner. Then I show you all the knowledge. So I would show you to you by slides or, the demonstration. And then the next one is application, where the learner has to apply it in a scenario, in his environment. And then the last one is where the new knowledge is integrated into the learner's world. That's the ultimate game, that he will be able to apply it in his world, in a world of work where he will be, whether he's in the classroom or whether he's in a business world, that he will be able to do training there or, whatever that field is where he will be working in. And these are the 9 events of instruction, which I mentioned earlier, Gagne's 9 events of instruction for instructors. So that goes, you can also see there's a pattern: gain the attention of the student, inform students of objectives, tell them what's coming, stimulate recall of prior learning. You can see there are some links with what Merrill said. Provide a learner guide. Did I say present the content? That would be the demonstration. Then provide the learner guidance, elicit performance, provide feedback. That is where we have the evaluation and then, implementation and then evaluation. And then assess performance, that's the evaluation part, and enhance retention and transfer to the job. So learn the content and be able to transfer it to the job. So there are many similarities. It's just more detail. And this model, I believe, is one of the fundamental models for designers. And it starts it's called the Bloom's taxonomy. This one is actually a later model. The first one was in 1956, and this is a revised version in 2001. Now, Bloom's taxonomy talks about how our brain works and how it should design our learning to, remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. Do you see there are so many connections between the different theories and the different models, and it all comes down to how does the brain absorb? I think if we could do the coloring, we could maybe put the brain next to this and say, oh yes, that's where the brain absorbs, that's where it sees and, experiences the first parts, and then he will remember a bit better. And then the next level will be understanding. That's in the middle part of the brain where it starts processing it. And then to be able to apply it, you need to understand it really well. Next level is analyzing. So you can do problem solving yourself. The student can do it. And then after that, we can evaluate, and he can finally create his new knowledge or something completely new. But the goals that we have, this is really to come back to where we were, to know the environment, to build relationships, to have it student-centered. Our seamless learning needs to be student-centered, number one. There must be inclusive design. We have to create a positive and meaningful user experience. Learning must be a journey. It cannot just stop in the classroom when you walk in and walk out. research-based findings to make design decisions. You need to do research. You can't just go ahead and say, oh, I understand this. Let me, start off my first design is going to be like this. Seek input from users and participants. Always ask feedback. You learn by doing this. Use real metrics to measure performance improvement. There's a lot of data going on. We can use those metrics and say, oh, this wasn't such a good experience. Students hardly went there. And recognize the value of sharing and social engagement, and then be innovative and flexible. So if we can apply this, we will be able to achieve, hopefully, seamless learning seamless learning. Now, if we think about, these are the books that I have been working on, you can look at those. And if we want to do something in this line, I would maybe want to hear what your ideas are. If we go to the seamless learning framework, give you a bit more information about each one of those, because this is really helpful. The first one is the core concepts. These core concepts are really about the learning concepts, okay? So we need to understand what the different types of learning pedagogical approaches are. And for a specific learning intervention, let's look at a science class again, where you will have to explain to the students how the chemicals work, and where they are from and how they work together. Say, talk about salt, and you can explain to them how it's formed through molecules, and then you can give the students some activities to do, maybe to add water and see how it dissolves, and the taste and all of that. But really to involve them. You can do exploratory learning by giving them this and saying, okay, now I want you to experiment with the salt and see what are the different reactions with other chemicals. So if you look at these three, these are only three. There are so many more different learning pedagogical approaches. You can use all of them in one class. You can start by a behaviorist approach, where you stand in front of the class, explain the molecules, and show them how it looks like. When you think at Merrill, demonstrate. And then you say, okay, from now on, it's going to be exploratory. So now I want you to see, what can you do with all of this? And in constructivist, that would be to create something new with the salt. And, that would be some of the learning pedagogies that you can bring into the classroom. So it doesn't say that you will not use the teacher in front of the class anymore. It says that you will bring in more learning experience, so it can involve more of the brain, that it becomes a holistic learning experience, not just one part of the brain learning here. Right, and then the positive concepts. Remember, we were talking about if a student is not motivated, you can just as well forget it. And this is about the mindset of the student and the lecturer, as well as the institution. If the mindset is positive, the approach can grow from strength to strength. But if the mindset is negative, obviously nothing can happen. So we will need to look into how can we bring in, the seamless learning approach in a way that one can see the interest of the student, and you can see how excited they are and how much they enjoy it, working together in a group, or giving them an experiment, that suddenly it starts flashing, or, bringing in that fun aspect, which we also looked at the quality, improving quality in that infographic. And then the next one is the practical concepts. Obviously, if we want to bring in learning, we also need the practical, seamless learning, the practical parts, which, okay, it can be books, right? Where do we find the knowledge? The books. If we don't have books, some students, some teachers in rural areas, they might have to get, work from prints. Sometimes the teacher has to read everything himself and then bring it to the student, and he can put it on the board. But he must not stop there, right? That's when it starts. And then if they have technology and they have access, even if it's a very simple device, like not a smartphone necessarily, but a device that has SMS, one can use that and maybe do a poll in the class and give the students some activity, which makes them, makes it more excited, or give them that activity when they're outside of the class and ask them a question, just ideas. I'm giving you ideas, and we're thinking about how are we going to use what we have. Then we can use WhatsApp. And, that project that I was talking about, or that where I got the award for, is for micro learning, where you chunk up the information into small pieces and then send it through. This is for adult learning, where teachers are in early childhood centers and they don't have a lot of information. They're not trained very well. So you give them little information bits per day, like an SMS or a WhatsApp. And then they can learn, read it, work with it, apply it. And then, at the end, we give them a feedback form. So one can use the WhatsApp. They can also do videos with WhatsApp and send it back to the teacher. And then obviously you can go from there, and there's so much technology on different levels that one can use, but it has to be there. We need to have something in place to be able to do a seamless learning environment. And as I said there last week, it does not rely on the state of the art of technology. People think seamless learning, now we all have to go and buy the state of the art laptops, or, we need internet, Wi-Fi, because we want to go onto the internet to get knowledge there, or data. That's a definite if you want to go further than that. But if the whole class doesn't have it, the teacher will have it, or the school. I mean, those are things we have to work on. And then the human concept, and this is where the instructors and the university, they play a very important role in contributing to the success of the student. If the student doesn't get support from the university or from the instructor, he will be lost. He will not know where to go. And we think we are working with the millennials and they can figure it out. They cannot figure out everything. Students do need guidance, and they need support when they are in a very difficult position. There needs to be some kind of department where a student can go and we can find help, even if it is a counselor that will listen to his emotional problems. This goes beyond classroom. This is where even the instructor needs support, and instructional designers are there to give their type of support. We look at all of these things, and we also even, psychological, we sometimes support that. But okay, it's very important that the universities are on track, and they also understand, and the schools, the principals also understand what it is about. Okay, and then the last one is the design concept, and that is really where we bring in all the different frameworks, ADDIE, Bloom's, student-centeredness, and when to include what. So we can look at all these concepts. Now it doesn't look so difficult anymore, right? It's actually simple. We just make sure that if we plan our lesson, all of these are included to optimize the students' learning experience, the students' seamless learning experience. And I came up with a shopping list, which makes it even easier. So I made some, you see here we have our model, and then I just added this for before, during, after, and improvements. One doesn't need that. I mean, you can just use this and say, okay, how am I going to design my lesson? How am I going to design, bring in the seamless learning approach? And then you can say, okay, for this specific lesson or for this specific course, I would like to use some behaviorist pedagogical approach, some cognitive, collaborative. I want the students to work together. I want them to discover a bit more, constructivist, also exploratory. I mean, there are many different learning concepts. I just wrote these down here. And then teacher-centered and student-centered. Then about the positive concepts, what will I do? What will I bring into the lesson that will motivate the student intrinsically, that he wants to do it by himself? And what will I add? So there's eccentric motivation, like maybe giving them an additional, like a, incentive. Some people give badges, some people give extra credits, something in that line. You can also say if everybody has finished the work by that and that time, or if you have reached this goal, or if you did, if you found a solution for the problem today, I will give you so and so. So students will need that, and you bring that into your design. And then the human concept, that is, make sure that the students are all good, that they're all happy, and then support your students and peers. And if you can't help them, send them to the expert in the school or in the university. Make sure that your students are in a good space so that their brains can relax. A brain that is in stress cannot absorb anything. And this is why I very often think, if children could, or students could have more time, or have a feeling of they are taken care of, and they can actually just sit there and listen, or you give them something where they are active and they're off having fun and they are relaxed, those brains will start working optimally and their grades will pick up. Yeah, and then practical concepts, then they need to have access to specific things depending of what you have. So you can say, I have this, I have this, I have this, and I will be adding that and that. Maybe if you want to add something additional, you can speak to your head of department. You can maybe speak to the education department if you're on that level, that you want to add something to your school. We added a cart with laptops on a campus where I was working with those phones. I got funding from the National Fund in South Africa, Education Fund, and we bought 100 laptops, and we put them into a cart, and that was in the library. So the students could take one of those laptops and sit in a Wi-Fi area. It was all in their library area, but they could choose whether they want to sit. Did I say laptop? I meant tablets. And then they would return it afterwards. This is for students that don't have their own, okay? But they have that experience and you can work your lesson out in that way. So I'm just giving you ideas. And then the design concept, how much of this is going to be in class, out of class, online, hybrid, high flex, hybrid, where you have some part of it online before, they have to work on it. It's really like blended. And high flex is where a part of the class is in the classroom, a part of the class is online, and the teacher's doing both. If you want to bring that in again, I don't know if that's any, relevant anymore, but during COVID it was. And then blended learning, where you have a section of the work in the class, a section of the work out of the class, and either you do it ahead of time where the students have to do some research before they come in the class, or when they're finished with a certain part and you say, no, the next section, you go out and you do it, and then you bring back your information. So one can do that blended approach. And then curriculum adaptations. So one needs to look at what's changing in the curriculum, and then lesson and activities planning, design it properly. So you have all of these sections in your training, like a chart, which you will be using for your next year again, So this is really part of the designing for a seamless learning. And I think the shopping list is really helpful to get you, on the right track. Otherwise, it can become a bit confusing, right? Okay, now we have 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Helga. If you can stop the sharing so that we can have the students on the same platform. Yeah, okay. So thank you very much, Dr. Helga, to make our webinar so helpful and worthwhile. And what I can conclude is that no pedagogy or no learning works until the students are ready to learn, or they are relaxed, there's no stress at all. And I would like now to call on participants to ask few of the questions. I think a couple of them had posted there in the chat box.
Oh.
Yeah, Nandini is there. Nandini, you want to ask a question? Please unmute yourself. Yes.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Very good morning. Am I audible properly?
Morning.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for this wonderful session. It was very informative. It was very enjoyable to learn from you. And I wanted to ask that seamless learning involves regular use of devices by children, and this puts them at threat of cyber attacks. How can we train our children to use these devices responsibly?
Okay, that's a really good question. Thank you. it's one of those things that teachers and parents are very concerned about, that, the screen time, and that the students or the children, depending on the age, right, how much they are allowed to be on the devices, and where are they allowed to go. As you may know, there are parental, apps that can be downloaded on your phone, and your child will not be able to go to certain places. Okay? Do you know about those apps, right? So I think parents in general don't really know so much about it, but one should tell them, as a teacher, tell your parents, I prefer not to give any cell phones to children that are younger than, I would say, 8 years old. Because when I know they play games on it, but if they play games, it's okay. But as long as they don't have access to other things, where they can start chatting to adults and stuff, But so I definitely think downloading one of the parental control apps is important. For the teachers, I know many teachers tell the students to put their mobile phones maybe in pockets when they walk into the classroom, or not even bring them to school, or hand them in at the entrance, because it can be disturbing if the students sit on the phone, obviously. But, for a teacher to plan his lesson in a way that he can say, okay, now you can take out your phones. I want to do a poll with you. Let's play Kahoot. Let's do Kahoot, Kahoot. And so that it's really a matter of planning and setting down the rules. When you talk about Ganya's instruction, he tells them exactly from the beginning what the expectation is. And if they know what's going to happen, they know what to follow. If you just say, okay, bring your phones, we're going to do something, and they start playing with it before you even start off, it really takes some time to prepare them for this new approach. Some students can be startled. Suddenly, what is the teacher doing? Oh, now we're going to have a birthday party. Then they get that energy, and then it takes a while to calm them down. But if you tell them ahead of time, we are going to do an experiment, and if it works, we can continue. Something in that line. So, I don't know if this answered your question, but it's really about control, making sure that everything is in place. The parents should also know what you're going to do. So you will prevent hundreds of telephone calls coming in, parents saying, why are you allowing my child to use the phone? Yeah. Okay, happy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's one question in the chat box, if you allow me to read it.
Yeah, okay, would you like to read?
Yeah, either of the way. So this is a question from one of the student named Nitin Gupta. He says that, quoting Nelson Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon which can be used to change the world. However, yes, we see that education has been restricted to textbooks, the hierarchy between a teacher and a student, endless assignments, and seamless pressure on pupils. So the question number one is there any need to include diverse voices, particularly from subaltern sections in the realm of education? So, and there's one more question.
Okay, let me do that first one.
Yeah.
Before I answer the first question, I think your use of the word seamless is not quite right in that sense. Endless assignments and endless pressure. Seamless is something which, if I want to tell, clarify the term, seamless is where there is, where you have completely different scenarios, but you can bridge them by bringing a bridge in from the one to the next. For instance, where I would be teaching in the classroom, right? I've said that. And then going into the world of work. How can I bridge those two? By maybe inviting an expert from there to come into my classroom, or by sending the student to that learning environment, or having an internet conversation. This is what seamless means. Bridging one after the other. So in this context, do you understand? It's not really the word here, but I appreciate your concern. It's true. There are so many challenges. And there is a lot of work, and I must say the curriculum is just increasing information, and it's difficult for teachers even to keep up. But this is where one needs to step one step back and say, okay, what do we want to achieve? How can we achieve this in a shorter and more effective way? Don't let the teacher do all the work and student do all the work in the same way, because then it gets boring. And when something is boring, your brain says boring and it cuts out. But if you bring in new activities, our brain, it stops concentrating after five seconds. It jumps to the next thing. While I talk to you, I'm already looking at something that's jumping up here on the side. It's a new message. My brain and our eyes are following. If we see something is flying by, we look at it. And we don't only have a brain that goes through the eyes. We have a brain with everything. So now I heard a truck driving past my house. And if we can, I'm sorry, I'm just now going on about this. But basically, it boils down to, even if there's a lot of information, as an instructor, as a teacher, as a educator, we are the ones that have to use the knowledge that we have now to package this information in a way that the student is not bored. He loves it. And you can give him even more information if it is packaged in this way. Okay, so this is the diverse. By doing it that way, you are actually accommodating everyone. The one that prefers to do stuff, the one that prefers to listen, the one that prefers to type. Bring all of those things in, and everyone will have their own little niche that they will find. I know that it's talk about learning styles is not, you don't have a specific learning style, but I do think your whole brain has to be working, right, to achieve that deep learning. And, bringing in all of those activities will also cater for all these different learning styles or diversity. And the second question?
That says that what could be done to change the age-old pedagogy as mentioned above, which is still practices in the country, like I think in most of the countries, we need not to call our country only, but in most of the countries.
Yeah, in most countries, we still have we call it the sage on the stage, the teacher in the front.
Yes.
He's the focal point of this whole class experience. And we should be the sage, we should be the guide on the side. We should be the facilitator rather than the sage.
Yes.
But as I said when I talked about designing, there is a place for the teachers to stand in front of the class. There is a place for behaviorist learning. The student needs to be introduced to the new knowledge. But then don't use 55 minutes or 45 like I did here to talk the whole time, talking head. Bring in the students, like now we can have a conversation and let them be part of the learning experience. So to change that pedagogy, it has to start with you. If you do it first, other teachers will see it, students will see it. And it's not easy if you do it all by yourself. So talk about it, what you have learned today. They can maybe watch the video and say, look, let's try this. We're not going to lose anything. We are still doing the same, but we are just adding additional things and making it more, let's say, wiser. Be more clever. Try to get this work done with a smarter approach. Right, and the third one?
Yeah, that says that educational technology is a double-edged sword. Technology has become a den of online bullying and data stealing, and the problem of the digital divide is omnipresent. What could be done to prevent the dark side of technology?
Very good questions. I like you, okay? I like you because you are really talking. You're asking the questions that are relevant. Obviously, technology brings its challenges with it. We know of cyberbullying, we know of all the other things that are happening, data hacking, stealing. We cannot prevent that. We just have to have our work secure, Make sure that we have firewalls, that our schools and universities use systems and software that have very strict firewalls and that cannot be hacked easily. If a person wants to hack, they will hack. If the person wants to bully, then you need to think about, why are we bullying? Why is this bullying going on? Why is this child or this person allowing bullying? I'm offering a course about ethical, the whole ethics around the internet and bullying in the classroom. If you are interested, I could maybe do another webinar one day, who knows, about that, because I think it's a topic on itself. We can talk about that later as well. But as I said, one just has to prevent. Prevention is better than cure.
Yes.
Right.
So,
now the question that we had, somebody had put her hand up.
anyone else who want to ask the question? Shivani, you want to ask? Please unmute
Yes, ma'am.
yourself. Yes, please.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
This was really an informative session, and thanks for connecting with us. So now my question is that as you talked about seamless learning, it talks about the continuity learning, but it seems to increase the screen time for students, if I'm right. So will not it affect the mental health of a child, and can it result in loss of temperament or anxiety, as we have also seen during the time of COVID pandemic? The school students were really of high temperament, as they're spending more time on screens, and they were not behaving like how and in what way a child should behave, but the behavior really different from a normal child. So the screen time will for sure affect the mental health, as I think. So can it be cured, or can we have some supplement for that? Thank you.
Right. I didn't get everything you said, so I'm going to repeat what I think you said, and then you must tell me if it's right. So you are really talking about screen time, right?
Yes.
And
Yes,
how
I'm
the
talking
students.
about screen time and the mental health. How can we prevent the mental health? Because the child, mental health of a child is, I think, a very, very sensitive matter, and increased screen time will for sure affect the mental health.
Are you saying maintenance?
No, she's saying that more of the screen time will definitely affect the mental health of students. So how come we can prevent the mental health of students from getting affected from more of the screen time if we switch to the seamless learning?
Yeah, I understand that. Mental health. As I said before, when we do the design, we don't want to increase that there's more screen time. We just want them to have additional opportunities and access to knowledge. I mean, it's all about the design. So if you say, let's add that part to the technology of our seamless learning model, that we say, how much screen time are we going to add? So I really like that idea. We can bring that in and say, how much of this should be, by using technology, and how much not. So one can control it. We don't want the students to sit on the phone the whole time and do their learning through the phone. No. It's just there to help them and to have access when they are not in the classroom, to communicate with a professor or with a teacher. There are some really good LMSs. Are you using an LMS in your school? A learner management system?
Yes.
Is this Shivani? Are you still here, Shivani?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm hearing.
Are you using are you an educator?
No, ma'am. I'm a student.
Student, right?
Yes, I'm a student.
Okay. So what I just wanted to say is that there are really good learner management systems, which I would propose to the schools, because that is where you can manage, you can control. And then the professor or the teacher can load the information they want the students to access, links from there, that they only log into their device and go on there and get the information they need, and not just be all over the place, because that's not controlled, right? Yeah, so it gives, if one plans, you can also add time on device.
Yes.
Not more than so many hours. One just has to bring it in, and we can't leave the device out, because the world of work is using them. It's just how it is.
So thank you again for helping us become aware of seamless learning in education, Dr. Helga, with the goal of providing a richer educational experience. And I think all the teachers and these budding teachers rather can benefit from a deeper understanding of seamless learning. Thank you so much once again, and we hope you will join us and speak to us by visiting SCRT Delhi someday here in India. Thank you all the participants.
I would love to come.
Yeah, that will be our
I would really love to come to see. I would like to see the education system, Would
yes,
be good
surely.
to understand it a bit better, because it's different. Every country has their own, their own approach. Yeah. Well, I see there's still another question, but I see the time is gone as well. Will you be able to send me that question? And I can
mail. Yeah, I will mail the question and then you can reply, so that I
Thank
can
you.
just provide the answer to the student.
Okay, awesome. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you so
I just
much.
want to thank you again for the opportunity. I'm very excited about working with you, and we'll see what the future brings.
Surely. So this is Professor Abha signing off on behalf of SCRT. Stay tuned, stay connected, stay happy and stay blessed. Keep learning and keep innovating. Bye-bye. Thank you. Take good care of yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all of you.